The shocking truth on the John Tavares signing has been revealed as the Toronto Maple Leafs lock up their former captain on a multi-year extension, and this paves the way for the Leafs to make multiple more moves, including the Matthew Knies contract, which we're going to break down all this and more, including John Tavares' contract, the breakdown of this, how it helps the future of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and exactly why Leafs fans should be fired up later on this episode. Before we get into that, if you're watching this video and you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, we're almost at 17,000 subscribers, so make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button. The community is growing like crazy. It's awesome to see. And if you guys want to keep up to date on not only the Toronto Maple Leafs but the rest of the National Hockey League, there's no better place to be than here at Hat Trick HQ, so go down and hit that free subscribe button. But Casey, we got hop straight into the first signing today, which has Leafs fans ecstatic, where we did see from Darren Dreger that John Tavares has signed a 4-year contract with an AAV of $4.38 million. Now, there was reports flying around that Tavares was looking at more money. He wanted more than 5, looking at 7, but locking up Tavares, the former captain, now assistant captain, to a long-term deal to retire as the Toronto Maple Leafs is huge, and we're going to break down exactly why that is. I mean, looking at the contract, there's a lot of deferred money. You can pause and look. The base salary of 3.7, all the way down to 1.8. 2 million signing bonuses deferred in the 5th year. You can pause and look at this. There's a lot of signing bonuses. The Toronto Maple Leafs have a lot of money to throw around. But the big thing with John Tavares is locking up someone that had such a good year. We're seeing all these players go into free agency. Matt Duchene signed for more than this after having a point per game season. But looking at John Tavares, Casey, what is your initial thoughts on this contract, which is looking like an absolute steal?
Yeah, this is a huge deal for Toronto. I mean, we were looking at contract numbers upwards of the high 6, low $7 million range, and now we're seeing the Pajama Boy take a pay cut for the good of this team to try to bring a Stanley Cup to Toronto. I mean, John Tavares is a staple of the Toronto Maple Leafs ever since coming over from the New York Islanders. He has been Mr. Consistent for this team. He's always in the mix every single game, whether it's a point, a goal, making a scoring chance happen. John Tavares is that guy for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And it's not just in the regular season. He has been one of the only, core founders of this current mold of Toronto Maple Leafs that have performed consistently in the playoffs, obviously scoring that big overtime goal to send them to the second round back, a couple of years ago. I mean, this guy has been a Toronto Maple Leaf. He bleeds blue, and there was a lot of rumors that he would not come back to Toronto, but there was no doubt in my mind that they were going to get this deal done. It's so great to see him, have love for this team so much to take a pay cut in his final years.
Yeah, because when he caught lightning in a bottle versus the Tampa Bay Lightning, obviously losing in the second round. But the biggest thing with this contract is, like I said, Matt Duchene signed for more than this, and this is a tax-free state in Dallas. Looking at him taking less than market value, looking at Scotiastat, projecting him on a 2-year, basically $5 million deal. You can see the contract comparables of Claude Giroux when he signed his contract at 34. $6.5 million. Joe Pavelski, 5.5. This number Tavares just signed with is so much lower than anyone around the National Hockey League expected. Pajama Boy is finally taking the discount. We've seen the narrative around Toronto of Mitch Marner gouging for money. William Nylander doing it in his first contract. John Tavares taking 11, even though he took less than a lot of teams were offering. The first time around in free agency, Tavares signs this contract, which opens up room for the team. I mean, looking at Tavares, one of the best on the dots around the National Hockey League. Doesn't throw the most hits, but still a very productive guy. When this contract ages in years 1, 2, 3, when you're getting to 3 and 4, you can look at a trade if you want to. You can bury him in the minors if you have to, which let's say he doesn't do. You still have a very good third-line center at the very worst in John Tavares coming off an almost 40-goal season. But overall, Leafs fans, we're going to get straight into Matthew Knies and how this opens up more room. But what is your initial thoughts on the signing? Because in my opinion, as a fan of the Leafs, this is one of the better signings and one of the best hometown discounts we've seen in so long. But going straight into the second part, we know the Toronto Maple Leafs still have a lot of room and a lot of players to sign. Mitch Marner seems to be going, who cares at this point? But having $21 million is very underrated. You're looking at this league of the NHL where there's a lot of super teams being built. Dallas is looking like it. Vegas has done it before, but the Leafs have room to build an even better core than they have, where it's not a core 4, but a core 7, 8, 10, 12, whatever it is. Looking at this, it does start with Matthew Knies. We know how good Matthew Knies has been. A second-round pick looking like an absolute steal, a freight train. He hounds the puck, and we see Scotiabank projecting him on a 6-year, $6.8 million deal. A lot of insiders have been leaning into Matthew Knies, looking at a JJ Peterka extension he just got with Utah at 7.7. But KC, looking at Matthew Knies, if you're extending this guy, would you be more comfortable giving him a lower AAV to go out and make more moves? Or do you think locking him up on that 7-year deal is the ideal option?
I think now that the money is going to be available, I think locking him up long term is the only option for Brad Treliving and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Matthew Knies has been a guy who came in and has just really set fire to the league. Everybody knows who Matthew Knies is. You hate going up against him. You love having him on your team because he's just a big presence in front of the net, and he just works so good with Austin Matthews. These guys got such great chemistry, and obviously you want to keep that around. He's been such a good performer in the playoffs. He's been a consistent performer in the regular season. So you want to keep this guy around, and locking him up for 8 years, I definitely think is definitely the best bet. And I think he will get Peterka numbers. I really do think he will get up in the high $7 million range because, I mean, you see John Tavares, like we just talked about, he went from an $11 million contract all the way down to 4.3. That's a big savings, as well as Mitch Marner. He's potentially on a sign and trade out of here, the last we've heard. So that's another $11 million that's gone there. So you have the money to work with to bring this guy in on a 8-year deal and have him for the prime of his career. And then you also have more money to go out and make some things work within the free agency to build a quote unquote super team, like you said, because they're going to need it with Dallas and Vegas and all these teams stacking up and just building dynasties. The Toronto Maple Leafs need to do that. They need a really big retool, a really big offseason, and it all starts with Matthew Knies getting that extension signed.
Because, I mean, at the very moment, giving Matthew Knies 7-ish million, you're having about 14 mil, if I can do quick maths, with this team going in. You still need to fill Mitch Marner's spot. You still have question marks around David Kampf, Max Domi. After his playoff run, I do hope they keep Max, but it does seem like they're looking at all options. Getting Matthew Knies and Tavares back is the top priority. It was very well known from Brad Treliving. It seems like Mitch Marner has been pushed to the side, and honestly, good riddance at this point. A fresh start for both sides is exactly what they need. But Leafs fans, what is your thoughts on this? How much would you give Matthew Knies? What is your thoughts on the John Tavares contract? And who do you think is the next to go? Do you think it's David Kampf? Do they move on from someone on defense? We're seeing teams get better in the Atlantic. The Montreal Canadiens just traded for Noah Dobson out of the New York Islanders organization. It's going to get crazy. The Leafs don't have a lot of draft capital, but with the cap rising, they have the possibility to make this a team that can finally win a Stanley Cup. But let us know all your thoughts down below. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We're so close on 17,000 subscribers. Even if that number gets over 17, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We'll keep you up to date on everything around the NHL, including your Toronto Maple Leafs. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, KC, and take care.